The privately sponsored refugee program, which we're expanding as part of today's these reforms. We've also obviously been a refuge for those who came to Canada seeking asylum and continue to be. In our resettlement programs, we continue to resettle more than 1 out of every 10 resettled refugees from around the world. The second largest number of resettled refugees, second only to the United States. And of course, Canada's doors remain open to those who come to our borders seeking refuge from persecution and violence abroad. Through our asylum system, which has unfortunately developed over the past couple of decades some significant challenges. One of those problems, of course, is that in our asylum system it now takes over 1.5 years for claimants and victims of persecution to be able to get to a hearing on their claim for asylum in Canada. That's not acceptable. It's not right that someone who has escaped from a despotic society, who's been a victim of torture, of ethnic cleansing, who can't go to their home again, should be told upon arrival in Canada that they have to wait 1.5 years to get a hearing and a decision on their application for our protection. We need to do better, and we can do better for them. At the same time, we need to address squarely the problem that we've had for many years of a large number of false asylum claimants taking advantage of our generosity by making false claims for asylum in Canada. How do I know this happens? Well, we can look at the statistics. Nearly 60% of the asylum claims filed in Canada are subsequently found not to be in need of our protection by the independent quasi-judicial Immigration and Refugee Board, or they're withdrawn or abandoned by the claimants themselves. One current example would be our #1 source country for asylum claims, which is a democratic member state of the European Union. That is to say, Hungary is now our #1 source country for asylum claims in Canada. 97% of Hungarian asylum claimants are going on to withdraw or abandon their claims, and those that are proceeding to the IRB for a decision are getting an acceptance rate overall of less than 1%. This reflects the situation we saw coming from Costa Rica in 2004. 2,000 claimants from a stable democracy, over 99% of which were found not to be in need of our protection. Similarly to the situation from Chile 10 years ago, several thousand refugee claimants overwhelmingly found not to be in need of our protection. Or even from Portugal 25 years ago with a similar pattern. And so, sadly, there are so many people who want to come to Canada, as we all know, that some are prepared to do so by coming in through the back door of our asylum system. And the point I want to emphasize for you today is that the Balanced Refugee Reform Act is necessary in order to maintain the integrity and the fairness of our immigration system. As a Minister of Immigration, I have a responsibility to ensure that everyone gets treated fairly according to the law, that everyone gets their chance in the line to come to Canada fairly. And I believe it's fundamentally unfair to the hundreds of thousands of people patiently waiting their opportunity legally to immigrate to Canada to see other people who are not victims of persecution coming to Canada making false asylum claims and immediately getting work permits, often getting social welfare benefits, being able to stay in Canada for 4 or 5 years on average or longer while they exhaust the many appeals in our complex and slow-moving asylum system. And so that is why we brought forward the Balanced Refugee Reform Act, the objective of which is clear: to provide faster protection for real bona fide refugees and victims of persecution, while at the same time providing for faster removal from Canada of those who seek to jump the immigration queue by coming in through the back door of our asylum system with unfounded claims. The objective is to restore fairness and to avoid the development of what some have called a two-tier immigration system. One tier that is often slow-moving for legitimate, law-abiding immigrants who wait patiently for their chance to come to Canada, and another fast-track tier for those who jump the queue and come in through the back door of the asylum system. The reforms that I announced yesterday and tabled in the House of Commons would, I believe, restore balance and fairness to the system by creating an asylum system that is both fair and fast. Let me briefly run through how we seek to do that, and I'll take your questions. First of all, under the new balanced refugee system that we're proposing, claimants who arrive, make an asylum claim, would have a triage interview with a public servant at the Immigration Refugee Board within 8 days to help them organize their claim. They would then be given a date for a hearing at the Refugee Protection Division within about 60 days of their filing a claim. Remember, right now, it takes a refugee 19 months before they get a hearing and a decision. Under the new system, we would be able to provide protection, certainty, and security to a real bona fide refugee within a matter of weeks rather than over a year and a half. I think we have a moral obligation to try to do that. Secondly, we are actually enhancing and improving procedural fairness in the asylum system by responding to the calls over many years of refugee advocates to create a full appeal division within the IRB. And so, with the passage of this balanced legislation, we will have a new refugee appeal division. And the overwhelming majority of asylum claimants who fail to get a positive decision at the Refugee Protection Division will now be able to go to the Refugee Appeal Division within about 4 months, and they will be able to present evidence, have a review of the facts, and even an oral hearing. This will be the strongest asylum system in the world in terms of procedural fairness. Finally, if they lose at that stage, they will get a second opportunity for appeal by seeking leave to the federal court, which of course is part of the current system. Now, adding the new appeal division, of course, has to be offset by some streamlining so that the whole system moves faster. And the way we do that is to provide for a 1-year moratorium on applications for the pre-removal risk assessment and permanent residency for humanitarian compassionate grounds following a negative decision at the Refugee Appeal Division. So, what does that mean? It means you get a full hearing to make an asylum claim at the Refugee Protection Division, a full appeal at the Appeal Division, and an opportunity for second level